I struggle to gauge the risk of physical attack objectively. What risk tools and processes can I use to evaluate this? Now, they have your address. They know where you live, and they know that you have crypto. First of all, don't panic. I know a lot of people are really scared about this. The reality is this: when you have a database of 1.3 million people who will happily give you their money with an email, you don't need to go to anybody's house. Going to people's houses involves a significant escalation in risk for very little additional reward. Worst case, you send them a letter to try to extort money from them, and that's still better than actually going there. So I think this is a very small risk if you're not a very prominent person in the industry, but let's go into it a bit more.
I wanted prominent person in the industry right here.
Yeah, I was about to say, okay, Jameson, I had one question for you, which is an add-on, but I want to make sure that we touch on this. Of the physical attacks that are known in the space or whatever regarding Bitcoin or crypto in general, how many are completely sort of random, meaning it's not like an in real life friend of a friend or two criminals who then like beat each other up, and then there's this report of a physical attack, and then obviously like the
for those who don't know, Jameson keeps a registry of physical attacks related to cryptocurrency. The link is in the description and in the chat. Go.
Yeah, there have been some good analysis of these attacks, and to put people's fears at rest, I think there have only been 60 or so over the decade plus. And of course, they generally get clustered around major run-ups in the exchange rate, which is what results in criminals getting attention that there may be easy pickings. This is, once again, a dynamic environment where criminals will continue to assess the risk and reward of these different type of attacks. Now, like most crimes, I think most crimes are not random. You are probably more likely to be attacked by someone or somehow are connected with. It could be a friend of a friend, especially if you are leaking information, if you're having extravagant displays of wealth. Those are the type of things that will attract the wrong type of attention. So of all of these attacks, I'm not aware of any that were completely random, because if you think about it, there are so few Bitcoin and crypto holders in the world. The likelihood of a random attack being against one of them is extremely low. The ones that are more high profile and had large sums of money that the attackers got away with, it was generally people who were engaging in risky activity. Many times they were doing face-to-face trades with large amounts of cash, large amounts of crypto, and those are the situations where if that's what you're going to do for a living, then you need to be worried about the high risk. There are fewer situations where it was someone who was just hanging out at home minding their own business. But even in those situations, I think many of the times they were prominent like crypto business people. So it was like well known. They had been in the space a long time. They had made a lot of money, and they're probably living in a very extravagant villa. So it was fairly obvious that they had a lot to lose.
Yeah, the most dangerous person who is going to go after your crypto holdings is your cousin Jimbo, who has a gambling or addiction problem and believes you're a billionaire with a B because they heard you got some Bitcoin in 2013. Honestly, that is a much bigger risk. Just like any situation where you have violence, abduction, physical crime, it's almost always someone who is someone someone who's related to you. Stranger danger is the most misleading bullshit thing that has been taught to Americans. Stranger is not danger. It's the person who is far more dangerous. All right, so let's talk outliers. Physical attacks are going to be outliers in two broad categories. The first one is you are well known in the space. You are taking extravagant risks, having a very flashy lifestyle. You make your location known, and as a result, you are targeted. Don't buy a Lambo. Do as I do. I have rented a Toyota that is so crappy that it has windows that open like this.
I'm getting a Lambo.
So the other one is outliers in terms of your location. Listen, someone said yesterday to me on Twitter, there's a big risk here because never before has someone been able to simply look up in a database how rich you are. I'm like, are you familiar with Zillow? Of course they already know. If you live in a neighborhood where the average annual income is $400,000 among mansions in a gated community, the fact that you have crypto and lots of money doesn't put you at risk. Similarly, if you have a middle class amount of savings in crypto and you live in a middle class neighborhood with a middle class security environment, that does not make you at risk. Even if you live in a low income neighborhood and you have a tiny amount of Bitcoin, does not make you at risk. If you appear to be a whale in a low income, low security neighborhood, then you're an outlier. So it's the outlier that gets you. Does that make sense?
It's the logic of violence. It is risk and reward, and who has the most to gain and the most to lose.
Yeah, and the arrogance and the cockiness, I think, is what get people in trouble more often than not, right? So it's one thing if you have $1 bazillion in Bitcoin and you live in a lower income neighborhood and you just sit there, but once you start either talking about the Bitcoin or even just getting really, really, really cocky about your anything, about your life situation, about what you talk about on forums online, that sort of attitude, I think, tends to rub people the wrong way and opens you up to be a target, whether that's online or offline, because again, it's, I would say, more likely that your neighbor is going to rob you if you start, if you show up to your house in a Lambo than, some hacker halfway around the world who knows you have $1 million in Bitcoin.
All right, let's look at 3 different categories of attack. What can someone do with this database? The first one is the one you immediately jump to, which is a home burglary. Someone breaking into your house when you are not at home, or worse, when you are at home, in order to steal your ledger, device, or seed. Very, very scary, but also extremely low likelihood of that happening. What can you do to prevent that?
I consider the seed phrase to be the tricky part. The ledger device itself is protected with a PIN. I believe it's required. So as long as you don't have the PIN also laying around somewhere right next to the device, then that's going to be safe from a physical attacker. It's keeping that seed phrase safe that becomes a lot trickier. I'm not a fan of simply writing it down and putting it in an obvious location like a safe. There's a million different ways that you can go with this. But if you want super high security around that seed phrase and you're not going to go down the technical route of using encryption tools, then a place that is really physically secure, like a safety deposit box, is probably your best bet.
All right. So for those who have a mnemonic phrase at home and a ledger device at home and are worried about this attack, possible countermeasures. A better location than a safe that is obvious is a hidden location. There are all kinds of devices that you can get that allow you to hide your belongings, from fake books to fake power plugs to fake alarm clocks to soup cans to etc. It would take far too long for someone to search all of the possible places for decoy things to find it. Another option is even better. BIP39, the mnemonic phrase standard, has an optional passphrase capability. Adding 4 to 6 English words, lowercase, separated by spaces as a second factor is a great way to make sure that even if someone steals your seed, they can't do anything with it. Now, another way to fix this is remove the key material from your house. So don't have it at home. And that's actually pretty good advice. Safe deposit boxes can be rented for $100 a year, $150 a year. You can find them at your local bank, credit union. You can also find them at private storage locations. Even finding a storage locker location and putting something there is better than keeping it at home. Any other advice on this?
When I was a younger crypto person, when the price started going up, I moved the most sensitive sort of quote unquote documents to my parents' house. They're no longer at my parents' house. But if you are just starting out, and you don't feel like you're ready for the commitment of a safety deposit box, think about people that are in your life that are close to you where you can keep something secure. The most important thing to remember, though, is that, even family can be pieces of shit sometimes. So you don't necessarily want to tell them what this thing is, but, it wasn't very difficult for me to put a manila envelope of stuff with all the other stuff that families tend to accumulate in that file in the corner of the garage covered in spiders. And that's also a good sort of backup mechanism. So one of the things that I hear from people so often is that they don't feel like they're rich enough or important enough to get a safety deposit box or to do this or to do that. But just think that there's a lot of things that are in your life that are trustworthy enough if you set the scenario up the right way. That will keep you safe enough for now as you upgrade and increase your security to the full-blown no key stuff in my house.
I think the backup part is something that can't be overemphasized. We have very good reason to believe, we're talking about all types of ways that your money can be stolen from you here, but we should not let that overshadow the fact that you are far more likely to screw up and shoot yourself in the foot and just simply lose your keys.
Far more likely.
Yeah, so having backups off-site away from your house, because really, house fires are probably more common than you think. You don't want a single catastrophe to cause you to lose everything because you don't have off-site backups.
Yeah, if you want to look into this further, I'm a huge fan of recording or etching onto a steel device. I actually have a demo somewhere here that I use. There's a whole variety of companies that offer steel backup devices, and steel is very important, not just metal. Jameson has done a fantastic series of reviews where he subjects these devices to extreme temperatures and shock cooling and striking and all kinds of other abuse to see which ones keep together and which ones melt, because actually they were made of aluminum and not steel. You can find that on his site, lop.net, is that correct?
That's right, it's on the main page.
Yeah, so a steel device can actually also be hidden much more effectively. It can be hidden in places that may be susceptible to water and other things without being damaged. Make several copies of that, spread it around, and if you have a passphrase, you have to back that up too. The next risk we have is the $5 wrench physical attack. The $5 wrench idea comes from an XKCD comic that says, is someone going to spend $1 million breaking your encryption with a cluster of computers, or are they just going to go and buy a $5 wrench and hit you over the head until you give them the password? Okay, before we go into this, I want to also emphasize this is extremely unlikely. It is a very high-risk type of attack that exposes the attacker to enormous risks as well, especially in the United States, where they get the $5 wrench and they discover the $150 AR-15 pointing at them the other way. So that's extremely unlikely. It's extremely high risk for the attacker and potentially low reward. there really isn't an effective defense against that unless you simply ensure that you do not have access to your own crypto. I do not, and I tell people this, I do not have access to my cold storage. Getting to my cold storage involves travel, airline travel, going to vaulted locations that require biometrics, that have armed guards, etc., etc. I can't get to my cold storage without weeks of effort. For most people, this is not a viable thing. The simple answer is this: you give them the damn Bitcoin. People, it's really simple. Don't lose your life over some stupid money. If someone has gone to the effort to track you down, come to your house, and is now threatening you, your family, with bodily harm, you give them the damn Bitcoin.
Because they're insane, by the way, because they came at you into your house and they actually have no idea what's inside. Like they don't have 100% confidence that I don't have a gun, or I don't have a crazy dog, or I don't have, I don't know, a man protecting me, whatever it is, right? Like they don't know, and yet they still came in. Give them whatever they ask for, count your blessings, and I don't know, set up a Bitcoin GoFundMe afterwards. Like deal with the consequences after, because your life is far more important than any amount of money.
Yeah, you can stack sats again later. Although if they did try to go after people on this live stream, we all take our own precautions. And if you ever want to look at this in more detail, Jameson Lopp has some fantastic posts about the physical security measures he takes. He has made it extremely unpalatable and likely unsurvivable for anyone to try to take something from his home. It would require a Marine Expeditionary Force to invade Jameson's house. All right, extortion. Likely not very effective, but this is something you can see. I actually saw a message from someone who already got attacked in this way. They received an email that said, "I know where you live. Give me $500, or the next time you're going to see me there. I'm going to visit you." Okay. 99.999%, this is a bluff. So ignore it. They're trying to make you scared. Any other advice?
It's the same email as the I've hacked your webcam. I've been watching you watch porn. If you don't pay me, I'm going to. It's just scare. Is it scareware you call it?
Yeah,
Jameson.
Yeah, it's scarier when they actually have some information. It would be kind of like them sending you a screenshot of you actually watching porn.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that would be time to pay up. But I think it's just scareware. I think a lot's going to be made of this, and the risk we have is if we all downplay it and somebody actually is victim of a actual physical attack, that's going to lead to shade thrown on the people who did dismiss it. But at the same time, I believe this is very unlikely. I think the people who should be worried about that, the people on the list whereby they can find other bits of information out and go, okay, I know where they live. I know where Pete McCormack lives now. I know where Jameson Lopp lives now. Right, they're in Bitcoin properly. Okay, right, I'm going to go after them because they've definitely got some Bitcoin. I think they're the people who we should be concerned about.
So this is a valid fear, and the human response to fear is fight, flight, or freeze. And we have to overcome the urge. Fight is going to cause us to do rash things like send recovery seeds to various places. Flight, abandoning hardware wallets, or moving to custodial services, bad. It turns out freeze actually isn't a bad response. So if you freeze and do nothing, that actually might be a good response. From personal experience, I've been doxxed. Doxxed means people have published my address. I've lived in that address in fear for a few months before I moved. I've been very, very careful about giving out address information since then.
Same.
But that's not because I'm worried about a random person coming. It's because I have an extremely high profile in this industry, which means that I am realistically a target. This does not apply to the vast majority of people on this list. And so, they're going to go through this list and they're going to go for the biggest targets, the biggest names, and the lowest hanging fruit they can find first before they get to you.
Hi, I'm Andreas Antonopoulos. If you enjoyed that video, consider that it takes a lot of work to produce open and free content that can be shared with everyone around the world. This isn't sponsored by some company. It's not promoting a product or an altcoin or some kind of investment scheme. My goal is simply to help explain the technology of Bitcoin and open blockchains to as many people as possible in a neutral way that focuses really on the incredible possibilities that this technology brings us. If you'd like to support that mission, subscribe to my channel and go on patreon.com/aantonop, where you can participate and help me build better content for more people. Thank you.